right, everybody, welcome to the MMA Freakcast. I'm Edson Valenzuela.
And I'm Matthew Salzer.
And we have not sat down, Matt, for like 2 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, well, partially because of the fact that I was on jury duty.
Yeah, so we weren't able to do it last week. You had to go do your duty as an American. And as such, we didn't get a chance to talk about UFC 196, which was what we previewed, I think, last month when we sat down for the last MMA
Freakcast. That's what we previewed, and so let's get down to that.
Let's start with the girls, the ladies for the night. Right?
Okay, ladies, yes. Well, there were okay, yeah. We can talk about the other.
We'll break down the two main events. The event is far enough in the rear view that maybe we'll touch on other things that happened that night here and there. But the two main events were Holly Holm, the women's bantamweight champion.
Yep.
Against defending her title against Miesha Tate, sort of the perennial number one contender in that division.
Yes.
And things were going well for Holly.
Yeah, she'd had one round in the second where Miesha was actually able to take her down and actually got into some good ground and pound. Didn't cut her open or anything like that. Didn't give her any bad bruising or anything like that, but she was able to get some good ground and pound. However, rounds 1, 3, and 4 were definitely for Holly. So going into that final round, it was definitely do or die for Miesha. And
she did, and she did instead of died.
I was just telling you about this off air before we got on.
Yeah.
But the way I see it, that was a desperation takedown because she she either had to submit her or she wasn't going to win the title. So she went in there with that final takedown, and it's a very non-traditional takedown. In fact, if you're a wrestler, you would be very much advised against that type of takedown. But she went in there, she went in for it was like a double leg, and then she was able to pull her down.
It's impressive that she was able to pull it off when she was sort of getting dominated, and also when she should have been at her most tired, really. Like you're saying, it is desperation, right? So there's maybe a little bit of an adrenaline dump, but
adrenaline rush more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she went in there, got in there, and then just sunk in that rear naked choke and just held on for dear life. It's like Holly threw her all over the place.
Well, was Holly first trying to punch her? She was trying to punch her off of her at first. Is that right? Sort of trying to swing in behind her and then just ended up flailing?
It started a little bit like that, but then she
was no chance.
But then she stood up. She was throwing her around, rolling around. It was like she was just doing anything and everything to get her off, and Miesha, just to give her that credit, was just holding her for dear life. She was literally hanging on for that title, and then finally Holly just ended up on her side, and she was just flailing around, just went just fell unconscious, and then that's when, of course, Big John stepped in, and Miesha was declared the champion.
The new champion, and that's something that she's been fighting for. That she has fought for that now 3 times. Is that right?
The UFC championship. Actually, this is only her second time competing for it, but of course, it was well earned because she had to go against all those contenders when Ronda was basically getting all the undefeated girls simply because of the fact that they were undefeated.
Yeah.
She got Kat, and arguably Kat Zingano was the number one contender at the time that they fought, but she got Kat and then submitted her in what 10, 15 seconds or something like that. And then got Betty Correa and then knocked her out in 45 seconds. Yeah. And then got Holly, who was also undefeated at the time. And but at the time, Holly was ranked under Miesha.
Miesha should have gotten the title fight for that.
Yeah, but to give Dana White credit, it did make sense because it was Holly.
The end result was proof.
Yes, Holly was the only woman that Miesha basically hadn't fought before, aside from maybe Amanda Nunes. But it made more sense to put her in against an opponent like that than to have him or her go against. I think for me there was a lack of luster for the Miesha Tate
Rousey 3 fight, right? Because that was like, okay, you guys have had 2 fights, and Rousey is sort of. Did she dominate the first one? Do you know?
That first one actually was a pretty back and forth.
Okay.
But the main thing, of course, was that she was able to get that armbar. And I don't know if you've ever seen footage of that first armbar, but she got the armbar, pulled it to straight, and then just kept pulling.
Yeah.
It's
She was trying to hurt her or win the fight.
No. It wasn't that she was trying to hurt her. She did hurt her. When I say she kept pulling, it literally popped out of its socket. You literally saw it go. You saw it go straight and then start to go turn in a way that it was not supposed to turn.
Wow.
And that's I think that's when Misha tapped out. But then it's like at the end of the match, they showed footage of Misha on the floor. You could tell she was in pain, and how she did not get such a severe injury that she didn't need surgery, I do not know. I guess it's just hyperextended or something like that. But usually something like that is gonna be like a tear or something.
Yeah.
But I guess it was just a hyperextension or something like that, and they dislocated elbow, so they popped it back in. She didn't need surgery.
Sometimes you see stuff like that in mixed martial arts or in grappling, where it's like, I think one of the worst I remember was, I don't know if you remember Mauricio Shogun, who was knee bar on Kevin Randleman.
Mm-hmm.
That was that he didn't pop it out of his socket.
I think it was just,
but it looked.
I think it was just more the fact that
awful.
I think it was just more the fact that Randleman was like yelling out of pain than anything else.
Goodness. Yeah, but no, I mean, but you saw his knee, you saw the back, but his hamstring was being bent outward, right? Like you saw the back of his knee being bent outward, and Shogun was putting a lot of force going in the opposite direction of where that leg is supposed to go.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you'll see stuff like that. All right, so then Misha now the champ. Dana White, the first thing that he says after Misha's the champ is that Rousey might get the first shot. Was what he first said. I thought I read that.
Yeah, that's
okay. Everybody knows Dana says one thing, then says the next thing, then says the next thing.
Well, of course, yeah. It's obviously nothing set in stone. He wanted to have Holly and Ronda fight at the UFC 200, obviously to build hype on that card. But of course, Holly wanted to be more active, which is understandable. And then Ronda, with her various filming commitments, went what's it called? That got pushed back, so she definitely wasn't going to fight at UFC 200. So at that point, Dana's thinking changed, and he's like, you know what, we can have Holly fight, and then she could fight Ronda when Ronda's ready. So my understanding is Holly's still gonna get that, or Ronda is gonna get that next crack. Because obviously Ronda's probably seething at the fact. This was what I said when I first watched that fight. Ronda's probably seething at the fact that a woman that she beat twice now has essentially has what was her belt for the longest time.
Yeah, so not only that, but one over on her on the fact that she beat somebody who dominated her from bell to bell.
Yeah.
Buzzer to buzzer. I read the morning after the Misha Tate and Ronda Rousey fight that Ronda Rousey, I can't remember who, it was a story, right, where a friend of Ronda Rousey, that Ronda didn't want to watch the fight. She couldn't bring herself to watch the fight, but that she texted whoever it was, sent him a message and said, like, what happened, and that person said, Misha choked Holly out, Misha or Tate, choke Holly out, and that Ronda Rousey's response was, I guess I got to get back to work.
Yeah.
Now, to me, I think after everything that's happened with Ronda Rousey,
that was a text from Dana White.
Oh, okay.
Dana White texted her and said that Misha won.
Though I appreciate that sort of. I appreciate sort of the toughness, right? The trying to come across as tough. I read into it a little bit, which is, so I'm confused. If it was home. Kicked her head off in the first round, would she have said, well, I guess I'm going to be retired for a little longer? You get what I mean? Because to me, that's what it sounded like. Well, I guess I should try now since somebody that I could be, won.
Yeah, that might be the...
You see how I might be able to read into it that way?
Yeah, definitely.
What if Dana would have told her, home knocked her out? Would she have said, And then is Dana sharing that with us? You know, is Dana telling us, yeah, she said she's still scared?
Yeah, it's kind of that's kind of one of those what if situations.
Yeah. It made her. It didn't make her sound tougher or cooler. It didn't seem like something where it was like hyping the fight any more than it could have. But yeah, no, I mean, we're excited and happy to see Rousey get back to work. And you know, it's interesting to see musical chairs happening in the women's division. That's something that's happened a couple times before in you know, other divisions that the UFC's had before. The 205 division was stacked in such a way where that was happening for a while there, and so.
Oh yeah, where they were playing.
This guy beats that guy. That guy beats that guy.
Liddell beat Rampage. Rampage, Liddell lost to Rampage. Rampage lost to Griffin. Griffin lost to
Rashad.
Evans. Evans lost to Machida. Machida lost to Hua, and then and then from that point on, it was the Jones show for the longest time until he got stripped of the title and had
DC's turn.
Yeah, it's been the DC show for the longest time. So, and of course, now we get to see if there's that possibility of is it going to still be the DC show or is it going to be the John Jones show again?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you know, they had nowadays, like for like campaigns, like quarterly campaigns or something like that. The UFC, I don't know if you've noticed, but the UFC seems to be having a theme going with certain campaigns, and the one leading to UFC 200 is being called UFC Unstoppable. So, but in this giant press conference where they had all these main event, you know, had all the main events shown. Not only did Daniel Cormier have a UFC belt in front of him, John Jones had a UFC belt in front of him. Yeah. And my thought was, what is that? The lineal MMA, the lineal UFC belt?
You know they get a new belt every time.
Yeah, I know I know they
so
get.
They have like a stockpile of belts. They can just bring them whenever they want. They don't though. I mean, you know, he's got like 5 at home. He's got one for every single time he's won, right? They get every time they put one around their waist. That's a new one that they're getting and keeping. In that way, I don't know how I feel about you. I feel like that's something that I don't know that a lot of people know, right? I've never liked that. I've always liked the idea. I think Pride only had the one belt that everybody shares because, you know, it's you're getting the belt, you know, knowing that
Well, you know, my mentality is, you know, they walk in with the fighters walk in with a new belt. My thought is, you know, maybe they just return. I think to save on belts, they just return that belt, or do they just give them?
I think they give them a second belt. I think they come in with a belt that they want from last time or another belt, and then I think the one that they put around them is always new, which is why it's always shimmering so beautifully when you see the camera.
And that's also why I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed around the time that I came back from Japan, I'm watching UFC. The belts were definitely a gold color. Nowadays, I don't know if you've noticed.
Like platinum?
Yeah, they're looking like kind of a more platinum color nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure when that transition happened.
No,
I think it's
clearly gold.
Yeah, I think it's probably been more of a. I'd like to say it happened maybe sometime around 2010, maybe. It's like
when
maybe
the
around
merger, the Strike Force.
That was. Oh, maybe it may have been around the Strike Force merger. Yeah, it might have been maybe around the Strike Force merger. That's maybe when the belt color started to change.
Change the style.
I'm not sure if that's exactly why they started changing the belt color, but yeah, that's.
I guess I never know. I think I noticed it, but it was a gradual thing, right? Where it was like, this maybe it looks like a paler gold now.
Well, of course. Well, and of course, if you look at the belts from early on, they had that very early UFC design, and then I think they had some kind of weird transitional design sometime.
If we're talking like all the way back to the old ones, I loved how those belts looked because they were like colorful.
Yeah, they were colorful,
but metallic still.
Yeah, a colorful metallic. Let's put it that way.
It was awesome.
At some point,
they did just the generic UFC logo, right? The octagons on the side, you know.
That was probably around the time of the Zuffa buyout was when was when they went with that generic look. But I remember there was also one belt that Tito Ortiz picture of TRT's carrying a belt was it was some weird. It was some I like the design of it, but it was a transitional belt in between that that flashy, colorful belt and the
new standard like gold and black.
Yeah, but it still had definitely a design to it. It still definitely had a very nice, colorful look to it. And of note is that the Strikeforce belts were actually some pretty nice belts.
Oh yeah, big ones.
Yeah, big ones, colorful ones. Because of course the Strikeforce logo was a very nice, colorful logo. So the that's the look that they went with. I've looked at the World Series of Fighting belts. They look like a generic look of the
UFC one, right?
Yeah.
We got a close-up of Marlon Moraes on the MMA Freakout OC Instagram. If anybody wants to go check that out, we got a nice close shot of him. And the belt definitely is reminiscent of just the plain gold black style that sort of UFC sort of has going on.
Yes. And another belt that I think the Bellator belt's actually pretty nice. The Bellator belts. With the of course they have that. They don't have as much color as like Strikeforce did, but they've got that warrior. They've got that warrior look. It has some color to it. So those are pretty nice looking belts.
Without getting too far off topic, do you remember when they did the? I don't know if they still have that new WWE belt, but I hate how that thing looks.
The one with the giant W.
Yeah, on it? I think it's terrible looking.
The big gold belt looked more.
Oh, I love that thing.
Yeah.
Anyhow, back
if we're gonna talk about WWE belts, another belt that I liked is that the women's belt the women's championship belt actually looked like a championship, whereas, as to quote Adam the Blumpied with WhatCulture.com, shout out to those guys, the Divas championship looks like a giant.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm with you. The way he said it looks like a giant earring, and I have to agree with him. That thing's ugly. It's ugly. It's like and I like how they're what they're doing with like the Divas division nowadays, where they're getting these newer girls in who are kind of a little bit more athletic. Who I could argue with some training could actually maybe hang with some MMA fighters, but the belt's ugly.
Well, I think
it's big giant purple butterfly is what it is.
Right back to the main event from what UFC 196. I was going to mention
okay.
Also the fact that they use the term diva.
Yeah,
it's dated already, they've doubled down on it too, though, because they got like the TV show on E now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But it is
not just
a derogatory statement.
Yeah, it's a negative statement. It's a negative connotation. It's like, why are you gonna use divas? The TNA term knockout makes more sense.
Yeah, that's a pun. That's a cute pun, knockout. Oh, I get it.
Yeah. Anyways,
all right. So I'll seg us into UFC 196 main event.
Main event,
which was a catchweight. Was it technically a welterweight?
Welterweight.
Okay, welterweight.
They were trying to do it as a catchweight, but then they just decided to go with welterweight.
So So Conor McGregor. So to give a little bit of background, Conor McGregor, the 145, the featherweight champion, was set to face at UFC 196. Was set to face the lightweight champion,
Rafael dos Anjos.
Rafael dos Anjos.
Yes, you have to pronounce it with the Portuguese, and they like instead of Spanish. Instead of Spanish words, like I don't know. You can you can roll your R's better, but whereas you roll it, it's ha. Yeah, it sounds like a H.
Yeah, ha. And people get confused too, right? Hicks and Gracie, Hoist. Why is an R there? Well, you say it Hoist.
Yes.
So Rafael dos Anjos and 155 we're supposed to square off. Him and Conor were supposed to square off for Rafael's title. That was going.
But he got a broken
155
foot.
title. Yes, he had to back out, broken foot. Between the news of him backing out and them announcing the new card, I did actually get a chance to sit down and podcast with Garrett Chachi and talk about that. And a couple of stories came out after I sat down with him to talk about it.
And that's a good transitional podcast, by the way.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. And I think I'm going to hope to sit down with him next week after this weekend's fight night. I sort of
which we will preview later.
Yes, which we will preview. But with him, I sort of talked to him and mentioned him. Hey, the UFC fight nights are the most accessible ones that we probably watch regularly and like have a sort of a focused discussion on. Where I don't know if you noticed, but like the podcast with him was clocked in at less than an hour. It's sort of less.
Yeah, we're more
conversational.
We're more extensive. We're more conversational.
We go into history.
Yeah, whereas you guys.
We try to keep focused on the event.
And you can also, and you guys also can maybe update on some stuff that that
we haven't touched on because it just happened after we podcasted or something.
Like with us. Yeah.
So those two were set to square off after the fight. After the fight is that fight is nixed. People are wondering, will Conor stay on the card? Donald Cerrone mentions interest. I think Conor McGregor. I don't know if it was Conor McGregor that sort of leaked that Jose Aldo had been approached for a rematch and had denied it. Is that right?
Yes.
Which is interesting. And so what ended up being the news that ended up being released a couple days after the announcement was then that Nate Diaz had been chosen as Conor McGregor's adversary for UFC 196. And not only that, but that they would be facing off in a weight division that Conor initially wasn't even planning on too. That is to say, he was supposed to be fighting at 155. He's a natural 145er.
Yeah.
Ended up taking the bout at 170.
Yes, because Nate couldn't pull off the weight cut.
And Nate, really, it was a smart move. I mean,
and it was on 2 weeks' notice.
Exactly.
Too.
So Nate has the leverage then to mention, hey, I will take this fight, but I'm not going to get down to the way you want me to. So if you want the fight to happen, it's going to have to happen at 170.
My understanding was I think I watched the count. I'd like to say the countdown to UFC fight, show, but they mentioned that Nate was just saying right off the bat, I won't be able to make 155. So Dana was like, "Can you make 160?" He's like, "No," and then he's like, "Can you make 165?" And then he said yes, but then when he's talked to Conor, he's like, "So are you willing to fight him at 165?" Conor said, "We're just 5 pounds away. Why not make it 170?" So welterweight.
Yeah, okay.
And I think we also got to get an idea of what Conor naturally walks around at, because didn't he weigh in at like 168 or something like that?
Yeah, and I wonder.
I think I'd like to say that's his natural weight.
And I think some people were mentioning that, and you cannot.
I thought he walked around like in the 170s. Maybe he might walk around in the 170s.
I mean, he was approaching fight night by the time Dos Anjos pulled out. He was maybe already. I'm assuming that they're.
Yeah, he was probably already floating around the 160 range,
starting to slowly cut. Right.
Yeah, let's face it. He's a big featherweight.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that when he was when he was fighting against Chad Mendes. We've seen that against almost every other opponent. He's a big featherweight.
Yeah, he has broad shoulders, a ton of musculature. You can tell his body is sort of set up in such a way where, his muscles are sort of, especially at 170, you can tell.
Aldo's a big featherweight too, because I've heard stories about him having difficulty cutting weight. And his Conor's trainer was talking about how he basically broke down his weight cutting down to a science. He would eat salads. He couldn't do the weight training that they were showing him doing in preparation for the what was the Dos Anjos fight, then the Diaz fight. But he couldn't do proper. He couldn't do the type of training that some fighters do at a weight class. But so anyways, they're both big featherweights, and
Conor entered the fight then ready for a 170 fight. Nate Diaz is somebody who actually has experience at 155 more, I think, than he does at 170.
Yeah, but he has fought at 170 before.
Okay, and so
I think the main reason why he doesn't like to fight though at 170 though is more the fact that he doesn't like
Nate, you mean?
Yeah, the reason why there's obviously we know that there's a very, very, very close bond between all the fighters in the Cesar Gracie camp. They don't like to be in weight classes where they'd have to compete with each other. Like for example, in Strikeforce, when most of them were all in said promotion, even though Jake Shields fights at more of a welterweight, he came in and was automatically starting to fight at middleweight because he didn't want to face off against Nick, who's his stablemate, was the 170 pound, who was the welterweight champion. And likewise, Gilbert was in Strikeforce for the longest time because he didn't want to go in and have to be in a weight class where Nate's competing in. So those guys don't like to compete in the same weight class. At one point, Jake was actually fighting in the UFC at middleweight. So yeah, they all don't like to be in weight classes where they're
facing off with each other, and as a result, they're hopping up and down between weight divisions. And something that happens naturally, I think, with a lot of fighters is as they get older, they find it more comfortable to just not have to cut as much,
Yes.
And it's not older in the sense of years necessarily, just once they get more fights under their belt and, maybe they see a certain amount of success or they don't, and they say, you know what, it's less work for me to just fight at this weight than that one, So the fight happens. Conor McGregor, it goes off. Conor McGregor, if I understand correctly, the first round was causing quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, he actually, and I don't know if this is because of Nate's,
style.
The Diaz brothers' tendency to develop scar tissue.
Yeah.
Above their eyes, but yeah, he hit him just in that normal area, and of course, Nate starts bleeding all over the place, and but yeah, it's one of those things where Conor hit him with. I think Conor learned a lesson in this fight, and that is that he's I'm gonna state the obvious. He's obviously a large featherweight, but he's an average lightweight, and a small welterweight. And as we've said before, Nate has fought at a welterweight at times, and he's a tall lightweight. So going to that fight, you look at that fight where Conor's. I think Conor admit at points that he was hitting Nate with some bombs, and just realized this guy's not falling. The punches that would put down featherweights and have put down featherweights just were not. They weren't phasing Nate, and the Diaz brothers have some of the strongest chins in MMA.
Say, that might not even necessarily be the fact that it can also very obviously be a big factor, but he was also facing a Diaz, and Diaz. What I was sort of going to touch on when you were mentioning the scar tissue was also that they have a style that sort of lends itself to allowing a guy to punch himself out. Not exactly rope-a-dope or anything like that, but they're actually quite skilled, I think, at sort of straightforward boxing or an elusive boxing style.
Yeah, because they actually have
gloves.
they've got their golden gloves. I think I can't remember if it's Nate or Nick. I think maybe even both of them may actually have pro boxing experience. But yeah, they have straight up boxing, and then of course they have that Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which makes them both dangerous on the ground and on their feet.
And I think they're deceptively dangerous on their feet because when Nick or Nate throw combinations, they look. A lot of people criticize how those combinations look.
Yeah, they look weak.
Soft.
Yeah, they look
weak. Short.
Yeah, they look weak. They look soft. And now, granted, they don't have a lot of TKO victories under them, but it's like you keep. But you look at the frequency; they punch a lot.
Yes, and they make contact pretty regularly as well.
Yeah, they're not like a bunch of these fighters who will swing and it's just
1, 2, 3, 4.
It looks like all the multitude. Yeah, these combos where they're swinging, but they're not always connecting. Whereas the other brothers, I think, have probably one of the best striker accuracy counts in MMA. They go out there, they connect on a regular basis. Yeah, they go out there and they connect against their opponents. And
of course, like you're saying, they don't have they don't have extreme punching power. But in a case like in a fight against McGregor, did McGregor punch himself out? And when he did, was Nate then beginning to land?
It kind of looked like that, and then it kind of looked like that. It's like there were points where he was just Conor was pouring on the shots to the point where he made Nate bleed, and of course Nate's just standing there at times throwing that that taunting at him as he usually does, and there's just that point where unlike Conor, who likes to do all the taunting before the fight, And at times after, when he'd go up against like Jose, when he went out and taunted Jose Aldo after a victory, he just he's actually pretty respectable in the ring. So he's going out there and he's realizing, I'm in trouble. It's just he just had you can just tell that look where a fighter realizes that he's going up against just different animal, and the Diaz brothers are just different animals. And of course, he's going up against Nate, and he's realizing, I'm in trouble. I'm throwing everything I've got at this guy, except I'm throwing the kitchen sink at this guy. He's still not going down. So and
he was able to pull off when he did land the shots that Conor eventually sort of wilted from. Right, it was a couple of shots that sort of maybe staggered him.
Yeah, and also both guys were bloody at the end. Now, granted, I think Nate probably bled more, but I think Nate actually did also get Conor open a little bit as well. So both guys were just bloody messes at the end of the fight, and the beginning of the end, Conor very uncharacteristically shot in for a takedown. That's what led to the eventual submission, and I'm just thinking, what are you doing, dude? Mm-hmm. It's like you're
that's not your game.
That's not your game. You're a striker. You're trying to go. You're a striker. You have no grappling experience, and you're going in for a takedown on a Gracie trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Yeah, and my thought was, that's stupid.
Well, and then over.
And then it was just the beginning of the end, because Nate, of course, being the grappler that he is, eventually got in and sunk it and
sunk in that rear naked choke.
Yep, sunk in that rear naked choke and choked out Conor. And then that's at that point, it's just like
unbelievable. I mean, here's to I think that one of the neatest things about this having happened to MMA fans, for those of us that have been following the sport, is the Diaz brothers have sort of been a spectacle within the sport for a good long time now.
Yeah, and but
they're not mainstream. They've never achieved mainstream success. They're not GSP. They're not Tito Ortiz. They're not Chuck Liddell. They're not Ronda Rousey. They're not Conor McGregor. Right.
Right.
This is the closest they'll probably be to that. Right. I mean. Nate
you had
done
Nick,
like the talk show rounds, I think.
Yeah, you had like Nick, beat George St. Pierre, but outside of that, then it was you're pretty correct.
Fight George St. Pierre, right?
Right.
He didn't beat him.
Right. No, he did not beat him.
Yeah. If he would have, that might have been a thing. But I'd say up until now, that was the closest that them as brothers have gotten to sort of like mainstream notoriety. You're right, his fight against George St. Pierre.
Oh yeah, because Conor's one of those guys who one of those stars. If there's anything that long time fans have learned, is that as the fight's evolving, there's these stars that are coming out the woodwork that are definitely starting to bring the sport kind of more into a mainstream view, and that's partially because of guys like Conor McGregor and women like Ronda Rousey, who are loud, rambunctious, outspoken, and generally in some ways, depending on the things, to use wrestling terminology, are kind of more heel personalities. And obviously that's what's going to get them out there. But of course, they also know how to do interviews and to be respectable at the right time. Yeah. Obviously, Conor likes to be, as we said, Conor likes to be loud and rambunctious and stuff like that. And Ronda at points like to, talk down at her opponent and smack talk and stuff like that. But they know how to do interviews. They know how to go out there and they know how to get eyes on the sport, eyes and ears on the sport, which is also partially how they're paid. They got pay-per-view. I'm sure they have pay-per-view by percentages in their contracts. Yeah. Bigger stars like that, they're going to have pay-per-view buys in their contracts. And also, speaking of which, UFC 196 actually garnered a few records. I think it has it's the most watched digital
pay-per-view.
Yeah, most watched digital pay-per-view. There's some view. There were some Fox Sports 1 records broken. There were some other views that were broken as well. I think that the game might have been a record as well. Another record that was set was the pay scale. Now, I don't think anyone made less than $10,000 on that. But that's not what's important. Connor has probably the largest losing payout of any fighter. He was paid $1 million for that loss. And Nate has got paid his biggest payday to date in like half a mil.
With bonuses? Was that with bonuses that he?
I think that one, I think was probably with bonus. Like a win bonus or something like that. But then on top of that,
performance of the night or anything?
Yeah, he got performance of the night. Misha, I'd like to say Misha also got performance of the night, and also Connor and Nate got the fight of the night.
Okay,
I think.
Okay. So that's some extra money for them as well.
Yeah. So that was just one of those things where. It was definitely a big event, and
it managed on being so, even though it wasn't a super fight, right? I mean, it managed on being this huge sort of thing, and afterwards all the hype managed on living up to it the same way, even though it wasn't Dos Anjos versus
McGregor.
Yeah. So I mean, it worked out. That was actually you and I guessed correctly
on the main event.
On the main event.
On our last podcast, we did predict that it was going to be McGregor by submission.
You got the round correct.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did. I guess third, but yeah, it ended up, or it was going to be Diaz by submission. It ended up working out. You said McGregor.
Yes.
It ended up working out. The card actually ended up being a card that everybody was talking about. UFC is still sort of on a roll that they've sort of been kind of riding since mid to late last year in terms of putting on exciting cards that people are talking about and that people are getting excited for.
Though of note,
I should Vegas.
Of note is that some of the other fights on the card, aside from the co-main event and main event, the actual pay-per-view fights. Aside from the opening fight, which was also a women's fight, which was Amanda Nunes versus Valentina Shevchenko. The other two fights were basically sleepers. They were for the most. They really didn't have anything going on except for the Latifi versus Vellante fight, where Latifi at one point suplexed Vellante, but for the most part they were sleepers. So most of those fights didn't have anything going on. As does sometimes happen, the prelims actually lived up to the hype better than some of the pay-per-view fights.
Diego Sanchez was actually part of the prelim. That is the UFC 1 alum.
Yeah, the UFC Fight Pass. Yeah.
Him alum.
He wasn't just an alum. He was the middle.
Forrest Griffin.
Him and Forrest Griffin were the original Ultimate Fighter winners.
Yes.
And unlike on that night where Diego was fighting at lightweight, he was the middleweight winner.
Yes.
That just amazes me how fighters could be that heavy and then fight in such a lower weight class later on. Because Kenny Florian fought at featherweight a few times.
Yes, he was, and he fought for when they recreated the lightweight title. He fought for it, and
against Sean Shirk.
Yeah, against Sean Shirk, but that was after coming in second at middleweight.
Yeah. Just goes to show. If there's anything I've noticed, it's that a lot of the earlier Ultimate Fighter winners, or Ultimate Fighter competitors that were in the UFC, they were there for a long time. Like Koscheck only recently. Lieben, I actually read somewhere that Lieben signed with Bellator. So he's coming out of retirement. Koscheck is also with Bellator. Okay. But, those guys were in there for a very long time, but it's just that their fighting style, obviously, there came to a point where they, the sport changed.
Bygone time.
Yeah, the sport changed. They were of that old, brawler style where maybe that style could have worked, but, fighters nowadays are getting to be a lot more technical. So, especially Lieben's last fight against Uriah Hall, where Hall's a very technical fighter, and granted, I think that might also be a shortcoming in that sometimes he doesn't have that killer instinct. But yeah, he's a technical fighter. He goes and he just outclassed Lieben with his technique. And
which is something that's fairly easy to do with Lieben if you are a solid striker, because Lieben
yeah,
is a striker, but he's
a
this
brawler.
open winging style.
Yeah, where Anderson Silva put him down in their very first Silva's debut. He went out there and just
blitzed them.
Just blitzed him in the first round. And that if you watch that fight in the part where it was almost predictable, because Silva's doing straight
through. Right.
Straight punches right through Lieben's swinging. I'm not even sure if Lieben ever touched him, honestly.
Yeah. No.
But it was just.
But he was swinging.
Yeah, he was swinging, going for it, thinking I'm going to get it.
One of these bombs is going to hit him, right?
And one of these bombs is going to hit him.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Right, just getting hit. So Matt, then that sort of, that unless you have any sort of parting opinions about 196 UFC 196. I think we more or less covered it.
Definitely. For the most part, we covered it. I think there's, we covered it. So we had a lot of records. And there's supposedly some of the scuttlebutt is that Connor's going to go back down to featherweight, and that he's going to fight Edgar's one of the names being tossed around. My understanding is actually is that the surveys in social media are that fans want Edgar more than they want a Aldo rematch, which makes sense considering it only took 12 seconds to knock out Aldo.
Oh, that fight was a crazy fight.
Yeah, I still can't. It
was unbelievable.
Yeah, watching that fight is still kind of shocking. Yeah, but anyway, so so we'll see how that all goes. So that was UFC 196 in a nutshell.
What else
this last weekend we had a World Series of Fighting fight, which I did not get around to watching because I was having to do one of my day jobs.
Sorry.
So Justin Gaeth, who's the lightweight champion, fought Brian Foster and successfully defended that fight, and that's
what's the title?
Lightweight.
Okay.
He's one of the he's definitely a rising prospect. So but that was that. I think that's all I can say about that, because the rest of these guys like World Series of Fighting 27, which was it 28 that we covered?
We covered 27. No, 28. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we covered 28. Yeah, we covered 28. So the just like 28, this one's got mainly rising prospects, which is most World Series of Fighting cards. That's basically what it is, because as we know, it's a second tier promotion. They're still trying to build themselves up. They do have some veterans in there, but they just don't have them grouped together.
Yeah, and it's hard in mixed martial arts. Really, it's hard to have an organization pop up as the third or fourth organization and really get too much traction going without it having or sharing in some sort of gimmick or specialty, sort of or niche. So that is, I don't know. Strikeforce was where Strikeforce and Elite XC was where women's MMA was sort of cultivated and grown, and that was something that you could find there if you wanted to go watch that. And so, unless you have something like that is going to draw a significant audience regularly for a specific fighter, it's really hard to carve your spot, in mixed martial arts. World Series of Fighting has actually, I think, done a pretty okay job in terms of consistency of the shows, the quality of the shows. It's on NBC. Is that right? It's on
NBCSN, yeah.
Sports, yeah.
They actually had one or two fights on regular NBC. Maybe they might be able to get those on there in the future, but
NBC used to have like Saturday afternoon boxing, and they've kind of tossed around the idea before with like with MMA, where it's like, oh, well, even the CBS shows that they did for Elite XC, right? Elite XC.
Yeah, Elite XC.
They've thought about it before. Why don't we do it with mixed martial arts? A show in the middle of in the middle of a Saturday or something like that, or on a Sunday, and it's like.
The Elite XC, they did that with Strikeforce as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was back when they were putting both of those on Showtime.
Yeah, right, and that was part of the show. There was a larger name for sort of the group of. It wasn't Show XC. I want to say it was.
They had Show XC as part of Elite XC, and then they had Show MMA as part of Bellator. Or no, Strike Force. Strike Force.
Okay.
Yeah, and those two were both signed back to back. Once Elite XC went the wayside, then Strike Force came out of the woodwork with that. Because up until that point, Strike Force had been a regional show, but Coker was like, you know what, let's take advantage of this. So they'd done some co-promotions with Elite XC before. They bought out the Elite XC assets, and they were able to come out on that.
Come out on top. And so, what do you think, Matt? How are you feeling?
Well, there's some little pieces of news that I actually want to address. And most of these are Bellator related. Before we get to the UFC fight night. So the first piece of news is that Wanderlei Silva signed with Bellator.
Wanderlei Silva, I was under the impression he was retired.
Yeah, but initially he said that, but I guess once, and then initially he said that, and I thought so too. But I guess once UFC released him, maybe Coker was able to. Coker is a very good guy in terms of negotiating and in terms of like getting some legends over. Not to mention, he probably said, you know what, the first few fights we'll have you fight in Japan with as that co-promotion with Rizin. And I know Wanderlei likes to fight in Japan, so that
he'll be able to have a chance to sort of get it going again over there. And not only that, by the way, I think he's probably more marketable in Japan than he would be here now, just based off of the history that he has over there.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that there's been a lot of rumors swirling around that about they're trying to put together a super fight between Wanderlei and Fedor.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't really heard a lot about who Fedor's next opponent might be, but
that's definitely something that's in the cards now because of how everything is falling together.
Yes, so
that'd be a cool fight. That I think again we talked about it. I think last time.
Yes. So
that would be a neat fight to watch happen. I mean, even if it's 12 years too late.
Yeah, even if it's 12 years too late. Also, then another piece of news in regards to is that. With the fight card between Kimbo Slice and Dada 5000, and then also Ken Shamrock, Royce Gracie, news has it that both Kimbo and Ken tested positive for something.
Well, what the something is matters. So what do you think it was?
Well, it's not exactly what that stuff is. Hasn't exactly been disclosed, but yeah, they it's not exactly known yet, but supposedly, yeah, it's they've they tested for something, so I guess we'll see what exactly happened there. He failed his pre-fight drug test,
and that was Ken.
Yeah, Ken, and supposedly also Kimbo. So
man, what is going on over there at Bellator?
And that's a bummer considering that fight was actually a pretty good fight. So
well, now you know why. Now you know why.
Well, no. The event was a pretty good event,
yeah. And also it was a success for them.
Yeah, it broke a few different records for Bellator, and it also was one of those events that was able to garner quite a bit of exposure and whatnot. So
for that to be marred by controversy is a bummer.
Yeah, it's usual, but it is what it is. So then also an interesting little trivia tidbit. I mentioned What Culture and their whole WWE coverage, and recently they talked about, because I don't know if you've been following this, but Shane McMahon's been Shane McMahon's actually returned to WWE for the first time in like 6 years or something like that.
I thought he he had almost wanted to permanently distance himself from the company at some point.
Yeah, but now he's back, and he's got a match coming up at WrestleMania. But the main point about bringing this up is, and this is actually directly related to MMA. Apparently, at one point, and I've learned this in this top 10 list, but he's got and I'll see if I can't connect it for those of our listeners. But apparently, he had a lot of brilliant ideas. One of which included around 2001 buying the UFC. And I'm just like, wow. He actually saw potential in the UFC, and I'm thinking,
yeah, well.
But the problem was, of course, Big Daddy Vince.
Yeah.
Yeah, who apparently
he has always seen. I think he has always seen the UFC as a sort of competition, which is, I don't know. He's in the. Maybe it's indicative of his incredibly egotistical and crazy style. But don't you feel as though?
Yeah, in a way.
Okay.
Even though at one point they were on the same channel, they were both on Spike.
And he's actually taken advantage of, people from the UFC, Ken.
Yeah, they the
Brock. They let Ronda go on, they.
And let's not also forget the fact that they like to market Brock as a former UFC champion.
Yes, but they've simultaneously gone from not acknowledging those things as well, where it's like this thing where it's like, oh, we can't say someone left us to go do real fighting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
they're not going to do that with CM. They're not going to do that with CM Punk. They're not going to do that with Bobby Lashley. They're not going to do that with Brock. Batista actually did one in between the stints. They're not going to acknowledge anything like that. Yeah.
So it's but yeah, to think that Shane had some business acumen and that his dad put the kibosh. What happened? His dad just said no.
Apparently his dad didn't see any money in it, but then when Shane saw it explode after the Ultimate Fighter, my understanding was he was probably seething at the fact that we could have bought that thing. He
could have been his dad of he could have been his dad of MMA.
Yeah, it's also sad because if I recall, the Fertittas bought the UFC from Semaphore Entertainment Group for about the same amount that that Vince bought WCW for like $5 million. It was something. It was less. $2 million. $2 million. That was minuscule.
Yeah, and that would have been for something that they would have been able to put to use as opposed to buying WCW for the sake of absorbing their roster and just essentially getting rid of the
competition.
Yeah. So that's neat. Shane O'Mac back in the mix. He's actually is he doing stuff on Raws and on SmackDown?
He's been appearing. Well, he hasn't done any actual matches, but he's been appearing on Raws and SmackDowns, trying to hype up the fight with WrestleMania. Oh, you're not going to believe who his opponent is at WrestleMania.
Shane O'Mac's opponent?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess.
Go ahead.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Nope.
Go ahead.
I will hum the music and
let's
see
see
if he gets it. Do.
Get out of here. Why would they do that?
I don't know either. Well, in storyline, the stakes are that he gets control of Monday Night Raw.
All right. Yeah, I guess that's why they do. But the way I see it, though, you must see it the same way as, they've already been overworking The Undertaker. He probably already should have done 5 of these last ones at Wrestle. Because he's so old, he's old.
Yes.
And I hear that, though he's able to put on the matches.
He's like 50.
Sometimes it's not easy, even the match.
Well, there's even, there's, in between his last appearance and now, there's been 3 or 4 months or something like that, because he last appeared.
He's been working?
He last appeared at Survivor Series in November.
And that's still more frequent than he did for a little while. For a little while, it was literally, I'm seeing you next year at WrestleMania.
Yeah, something like that.
So, And I think that maybe, and we've gone off the tangent onto the wrestling podcast, but I think really it's probably, it's kind of weird. It's this thing they'll have to have someone else come out because I feel like it's this thing where it's like, really, you're going to waste one of the last times.
I am making this prediction. I might be wrong, but I'm making this prediction because I don't think even WWE, because with the quality of their writing, they're probably not even smart enough to do this. I'm predicting Sting is going to come out and help Shane win.
Fight on behalf. Sting is a heel? Is Shane a heel? Is Shane behaving as a
Shane's actually appearing as a face because he's opposing his dad, his dad and his sister, who are the authority and heels right now, where they're kind of almost appearing as their business.
No, then you're absolutely correct.
They're almost appearing actually as their business counterparts because they're saying, "Oh, I'm going to do what I think is best for business." They're being defiant to the fans. They're getting booed to the fans. It's just like, your guys are acting exactly the way you're acting in the business world because you're not giving people the matches. You're not giving people you overworked your roster. Half your guys are injured.
It's a weird tongue-in-cheek thing where it's like we acknowledge, like they'll cut promos where like they acknowledge their shortcomings as a company. But also,
that was part of when Shane came on and he was criticizing. He was storyline criticizing his dad, but he was referencing real life events. He was referencing the plunge in the ratings. He was referencing the plunge in the stock. He was referencing the injuries, which leads me to think that there's probably a little bit more behind his coming back.
It's like we need help.
Then is in kayfabe. I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think that his
maybe he didn't even want to come back. You mean?
I don't think that his coming back is all just kayfabe. I think it might be in an actual capacity, an actual managerial capacity. Because why would you bring someone back like that only to have someone lose to the Undertaker and didn't. But I'd hope that this would be a smart business strategy. This might be just them grasping at straws.
They're setting up this Sting match. You're right, though. I mean,
this might be them grasping at straws. I don't know.
People have teased or wanted the Sting Undertaker match at WrestleMania for a while now. He's finally on the roster, so it's like, okay, this is going to be the last.
Yeah, but he's been heavily underutilized, and this just reflects the bad writing. He's 2-2. You could count the number of matches, unlike some of these guys. He's 2-2 in the WWE so far, and both those losses have been on pay-per-view. And his only actual wins, one was a DQ, and the other was a tag match with John Cena.
That's really bad.
I don't even know why he's going along with this. I seriously do not.
Yeah, money, man. Money. Let's not get carried away. We'll do a wrestling podcast in the future.
Yes, we'll do a wrestling podcast. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So okay. So that's all the news I have right now. So we will very briefly go over the upcoming UFC Fight Night this week.
All right. Let's do it.
Okay. So UFC Fight Night. Hunt versus Mir, numbered UFC Fight Night 85. So, taking place in Brisbane, Australia, at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. It's taking place on this Sunday, and it's actually going to be on Fox Sports 1. So, the main event, of course, is Mir versus Hunt. Two longtime veterans of the sport, Hunt being the hometown boy. Co-main event is Neil Magny, who's been definitely out there, definitely... he's one of those Ultimate Fighter alum who I think is very unappreciated. He's actually been doing pretty well. Because at one point he was on like a 6-fight win streak or something like that. Tied the record for most wins in a year at 5. So,
that is good. That is good.
And he's set to fight hometown boy Hector Lombard.
Okay.
Who's even though he's Cuban, has kind of unofficially made Australia is home. He may have defected there.
Well, yeah.
So, then another Aussie, I think is Jake Matthews. Dan Kelly, I think, is Australian. James Ahuna, definitely. Rawlings is definitely.
So this is
Aussie.
So this is going to be an early show here for us in California. Is that right?
It says Fox Sports 1. My guess is I can't tell.
Midday, right? The Australian.
Yeah, it might be midday there.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna.
Okay.
It's probably,
they set it up so that it's being at the right time here.
Yeah, they set up so where it's midday here, but it's evening for us here. So,
right.
Which might mean that it'd be Saturday night for us, but of course Sunday for them, which is why it's saying Sunday.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, that's
coming up this weekend. Anything on the prelims or undercard?
Let's see. Brendan O'Reilly, Allen, Jobin, Dan Hooker, Leslie Smith, Rin Nakai, Ross Pearson's on there. It looks like a typical fight night where they're basically trying to get guys exposure and stuff like that. Kind of lesser known names, which is basically what the fight night has kind of turned into.
And it's a solid main
event
as well.
Well, I'm not these are actually named people on the main card. The undercards kind of there's some regional Ultimate Fighter people. Typically when you do a fight card like this is that I've noticed is that they try to get local fighters on there so they can garner local interest. It's more about local interest than it is about necessarily what, even though it's on Fox Sports 1, it's more about local interest than it is about appealing to the American audience.
Understood, or just appealing to like a mixed martial arts audience in general, like or at large.
Well, for someone like me, I actually wouldn't mind watching this fight if I wasn't doing my day job.
I was going to mention as well that no. I mean, for MMA fans, we'll take a good card when we get it, but it's also an opportunity for the UFC to make the most out of its resources. That is, some of these gentlemen they live in these places, right? They train in these places. They train with one another in these places. And so it's like, if we already know that these guys are stablemates, or we know that these guys are going to be there, where we have a rich sort of population of fighters in this area, it's like, why not be able to take advantage? They've done it in Europe before, they've done it in the UK and stuff like that, right? Put on a lot of regional guys, hometown guys.
Also in Brazil.
Yeah, and it adds to the popularity of the sport because they have people there that they can cheer on and really, really get behind and stuff. So
yes. So yeah.
This will be a cool card.
Yeah. So you wanna make a prediction for
the main event, really? The main event, because I haven't seen the other dudes fight enough, but I can try to make a prediction for the main event. So Frank Mir versus
Mark Hunt.
Mark Hunt. Can you rattle off their last three? Can you rattle off their last three for me?
Okay, so let's see. Mir, I know for
Todd Duffy, the Todd Duffy one.
Todd Duffy was his last win, but he's coming off a loss against Andrei Arlovsky. That was actually a decision win. Beat Antonio Silva
by
TKO punches. I don't remember if I watched that one or not, but before that was when he had that 4-fight losing skid.
Okay.
And which I thought, man,
that's
UFC,
it. You're done.
I thought UFC's gonna let him go, but one thing advantage going for him is he's a company man.
He's a company man. He's a former heavyweight champ a couple times now.
Yeah, he's been fighting in the UFC since 2001. He had 2 fights outside the UFC, and he's been fighting for the UFC ever since.
Some might point at him towards one of the more underappreciated heavyweight champions in the history of the UFC.
Well, it didn't help that his first championship run ended so quickly.
Yeah.
He won against. Let's not forget that very great armbar against Tim Sylvia, where he had Sylvia in the armbar, and then and then Herb Dean saw the arm break up close, stops the fight, everyone's booing, but then you watch the slow motion replay and you go see the break.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Break 3 times.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Also, I watched live just to give you a little bit of taunting. I watched live his match against Tank Abbott. That was like Tank Abbott's comeback fight, and it ended like, that was the night that was
the toe hold submission.
There you go, and that was
only toe hold.
Two weird things happened that night. That might have actually no. Well, okay.
Well, let me look at the event.
Okay, wait. Did Couture fight that night?
Let's see. Couture did not.
Then Sylvia did.
Sylvia
and he destroyed
against
Rico Rodriguez. Yeah, that was when Sylvia won. That was when Sylvia won the heavyweight championship. So those 2 things happened the same night, right? Frank Mir sort of burst onto the scene by beating Tank Abbott, and Tim Sylvia absolutely destroyed Rico Rodriguez. I don't know if you remember that match, but it was a very, very quick and convincing win by Sylvia.
Which is what established Sylvia as a top draw at the time for the UFC. And he was, to be fair, he was in there for a while. Mm-hmm. And also, that I feel like that's when the UFC kind of had kind of a thin heavyweight division. Because Couture wasn't necessarily in
but he was a Miletich dude too, right? It wasn't like he was just some guy that showed up out of
nowhere.
He Miletich camp that was already
an interesting thing. The story is that Miletich actually invited him into the camp.
All right.
Because Sylvia at the time, I think he was like in high school or something like that, and he was already tall. Goes to see a MMA event. I can't remember if it was specifically UFC or not, but Miletich sees him. He's like, "You're a big dude. Why don't you come fight for me?" So he went and he went and fought for him, and to give him credit, he was pretty successful guy, probably because of that Miletich training specifically. Mm-hmm. But as I've said before, I just looking in retrospect, I just feel like
it was a slow time for this.
Yeah, and not to mention Pride. That's where all the top fighters were going. That's where top heavyweights were going. That's where all the money was. Yeah. So you were a big fighter. You went to Japan, and I guess no one in Pride really saw any potential in Tim Sylvia at the time. So he
hit me with Hunt's wins.
Okay, Hunt wins. Good old Mark Hunt. So
Mir coming off of a loss and 2 wins, two stoppages that he won, and the loss was a hard-fought loss against Arlovsky. Now Hunt's last 3 bouts
Hunt won against Bigfoot.
All right.
In that rematch of their very, very, very good
first match in C or Strength?
No, that was no. Their first match was the first match was in the UFC. That was when they went to a draw.
Okay.
And then Bigfoot tested positive.
Okay.
So and to make up for that, they gave Hunt Silva's fight night bonus.
Oh,
because they got a fight of the night. They got fight of the night.
Sucks
and
for Silva.
And they said you know what,
there's no way to change. There's no way to change the decision. There's no way. You're right. Like it's what can we do here to punish you?
Well, they changed his to a no contest. So on his end, it's registered as a no contest, but it's still a draw for Mark Hunt.
Okay.
So he still has the draw, and then he
got the fight night bonus,
and they he got both fight night bonuses. Yeah. So nice. Let's see. Last 3 fights, he's actually coming off of a win against Bigfoot, but he lost to Stipe Miocic and Fabricio Werdum.
And how did he lose those?
The Werdum fight, that was that flying knee when they were fighting for the interim title, and then the Stipe Miocic fight was a TKO loss in the 5th round.
All right. Well,
so they were going for a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want to throw a prediction first?
I don't know, because that's one of those fights where if Mir can get it on the ground, then Mir has the advantage. But if it's standing, Hunt's definitely got the advantage. He's a K1 champion after all. Just because of the fact that Mir has a tendency to stand up a little bit more than they should nowadays, I'm going to predict it as a TKO KO for Mir.
For Mir?
No. For Hunt.
Okay.
Hunt.
This is not easy. I want to say the same. It's gonna be a 5-rounder between those guys. Those guys are old.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. Yeah. Then I'll say the same. But you're right. I think you're right. He does tend to stand more than he should nowadays, and also, I mean. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, when was the last time you saw him really wrestle and try to work a submission? You know what I mean? He doesn't really work submissions. He kind of counter punches, or maybe if it ends up being a scramble, tries to get something going.
Yeah, the last submission I think for Mir that we ever saw from him may have been that time when he broke Big Nog's arm. Let's see. Submission technique. Oh, yep, it was. Yeah,
that was
that was 2011, and that was right before he went on that 4-fight losing skid.
Oh, there you go.
Which I think is part. Well, but there were several things. He admitted that he was overtraining. He admitted that he was on TRT at the time as a result of that overtraining. He wasn't trained properly. We could, And but yeah, he went on that losing skid. He fought an average of once a year.
Oh.
That didn't help at all.
No,
whereas
no,
last year he fought 3 times.
Yeah, all right. See?
Yeah, so
and he's doing better now. So, but still, I mean, he's someone coming in on the hot streak, and you can't help but think that Hunt was going to be a little extra hungry because he's not exactly, on this win streak, really. He's got a couple losses.
Both men are in their late 30s. Mir's 36.
They've both been around the sports for a while.
Yeah, Mir's 36. Hunt is Hunt's 41. So yeah, I don't I think this is that Hunt later admit that when he re-signed his contract with the UFC that this was going to be his last contract because he knows that he's getting old. He knows this is probably going to be towards the end of his career. I think the most that he's ever really going to get at this point is that interim title title shot. I think that's probably as far as he's going to get. Well, he also did have a title fight, to be fair, against Fedor.
Yeah, that's right.
The butt bomb.
The butt bomb. Yeah. And followed by the Kimura.
Which it's kind of funny because it's like watching that. I know that he was trying to do a stomp, but it just looked like a butt bomb.
Yeah, no, definitely looked like a big baby trying to fall on it. Yeah. All right, Matt. I think that just about does it for today's episode. I feel good about it.
Yeah, I think we did pretty well. So my schedule because of other things maybe a little hectic. So we'll definitely try and get something in. But
I'll try.
And there's
Garrett as well, as I told you.
Yeah, and there's to be honest, I don't think there's really too much going on in
the next couple months.
There's that fight. Oh, well, it's in the next 2 weeks. I mean, there's that fight night, but then that's about it. There's going to be there's going to be a Croatia fight card on April 10th. Okay. There might be some let me look at the schedule. Because I got it right here. Let's see. There's that fight night.
Where was 197?
There's literally nothing going on Easter. 197 isn't until the 23rd. World Series of Fighting on the 2nd. So, yeah, there's not really much going on. So, hypothetically speaking, if, we didn't get the chance because of my schedule to talk.
We'll catch it in 2 weeks anyway.
Yeah.
Those that have managed on tuning in will know that we either do this weekly or bi-weekly for the most part. We don't let more than 2 weeks pass.
We don't let 2 weeks pass. Also of note is that this weekend is the and I'm kind of irked I'm going to miss the live wrestling, but this weekend is the NCAA Division I Wrestling Championships.
Oh, you can't see it.
Yeah, because I'm going to be working. But it's the NCAA Division I Championships. A lot of fighters, a lot of future fighters have come out of the woodwork at this event. The late Ken Randleman came out of it. Randy Couture, Frank Mir. Let's see. Brock Lesnar.
Weidman, Fitch.
Weidman was an All-American. Fitch was, I think, made it on the national. But yeah, it's Darren Caldwell, who won the NCAAs a few years back. He's he's making a splash in Bellator. Joe Warden's making a splash in Bellator. Ben Askren, who was in Bellator, now ONE FC. Johnny Hendricks, former welterweight champion. Former welterweight champion. He made it out there. Daniel Cormier fought or wrestled as well. Former champion Cain Velasquez, All-American. Yeah. It's like you just look at the who's who. Wrestlers have a just because of MMA, just the nature of what it is. Yeah. Wrestlers just have a tendency to excel because it's
and wrestling is, I'd say, with the last thing we'll say about freestyle wrestling is that it's in a lot of ways a Western martial art, right? It's in a lot of ways, this part of the world's martial arts. One of it's a martial art. It's a combat. It's a combat sport. And the techniques.
Russians and Americans in particular, or I should say former Soviet, because that's one of the sports that during the height of the Cold War the Soviets liked to excel at. Those former Soviet countries still excel at it because they just got that training. Iran also Iran's also pretty good at wrestling.
Yeah.
Japan. Japan used to be really good at wrestling, but their men's, I'm not sure exactly why, but their men's wrestling seems to have teetered off a little bit. But where they really excel at now is their women's wrestling.
Okay.
They go out there and they just
crush.
They go out there and they crush. They just go out there and the Japanese women wrestlers are just some of the best in the world. Right, yeah, best in the world right now.
Sign us off, Matt.
Okay, so I am at Matthew Salzer.
I am at Edson_V on Twitter.
Yeah, and we are at MMA Freakout. So thank you for listening.
Yes, thanks for listening. Hey, Heffy, how are you?
Oh yeah, Heffy.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, and this is kind of playful, but hey, Adam Blumpade. I would still want a shot at your At What Culture title.
Boom. That's hilarious.
Okay, so yeah, well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all soon next week. See you all soon next week.